21-day lockdown. The eThekwini municipality and City of Cape Town violates regulations under COVID-19. This week, we focus on informal settlements and illegal evictions by local authorities. What you have just heard is a recent eviction in Makaza, Khayelitsha. South Africa is 2 weeks into a national lockdown to prevent the spread of COVID-19. And this podcast continues to cover what the life-saving instructions to stay at home means for those whose housing is not totally secure. Last week, we spoke about what the regulation means for tenants who are worried they cannot pay rent. This week, I'll be hosting a panel discussion on the evictions during the lockdown and what the COVID-19 regulations have meant for tenants and residents. I'm your host, Zacharia Mashele. But first, let's listen to an insert from our previous podcast at the beginning of the lockdown.
On the 20th of March 2020, Ndifuna Ukwazi and 26 other civil organizations and social movements wrote to the President and the National Command Council requesting that a moratorium be placed on all evictions during the lockdown. So this included the issuing of eviction orders by courts and the execution of eviction orders by sheriffs. Government has since responded, and in the regulations published on the 26th of March, the Minister of Justice declared that all evictions are suspended with immediate effect for the duration of the lockdown.
With me for this important discussion, I have Mr. Thapelo Mohapi, former SG of Abahlali Basemjondolo, currently working with Ndifuna Ukwazi as an organizer. I also have Booi, a student activist and an organizer at Ndifuna Ukwazi. Gentlemen, we are 16 days into the lockdown, and we are seeing reports of people continuing to be put out of their homes, displaced, and even made homeless despite the state of disaster and the regulation mentioned by Ms. Lowe in the insert. Are these directions not being enforced, and who is executing these evictions?
The directives that were issued by the Justice Minister, Minister Ronald Lamula, were saying that there must be no evictions. The executions of all evictions must stop. They are all suspended. But what we see happening now is the violation of the regulations and the directives by the minister, that there must be no evictions that are executed. And we see people in Makaza and in Durban being evicted violently by law enforcement agencies. And the people that are responsible for these evictions are the municipalities and law enforcement agencies, those that are supposed to be enforcing the rules. So our people are vulnerable. Some of them are sleeping outside because their homes were bulldozed by law enforcement agencies.
And Thapelo?
Well, thank you very much for the question. Good afternoon to your listeners as well. Look, what has been happening both in Durban and in Khayelitsha, in Makaza, has been a great concern for us as activists who are advocating for the right to access land in better places where people can get opportunities. We have seen the state using its military as well as police and law enforcement to evict poor people out of their homes, rendering them homeless. We have seen children stranded or who are supposed to be ensuring that the spread of this virus does not go out of hand as it has been in the few weeks. The reason why we have a lockdown is to ensure that people stay in their homes, that there is no further spreads. But how can people abide by the lockdown when the very homes which they live in are being destructed and destroyed by the different cities? We have seen extensive violence, even homeless people who have been taken to Stanfontein, where conditions for people to live there are very difficult for people to live. And excessive force rubber bullets have been used to actually control and disperse people. Which this is a very concern for us when violence is used against people in such difficult times and evictions taking place, even when the national government has called for a stop, have suspended, in fact, the evictions for this period, because we are all worried about what this virus can cause. But it seems that the municipalities are not taking the orders of the national government.
As we may know, the lockdown was enforced in an attempt to flatten the curve, right? And we have seen that the global solution has been to stay indoors to limit social contact. But what does this mean for people who have been illegally evicted during this time?
So what this means, Zacharia, is that people are rendered homeless. And the difficulty in this is that we have law enforcement agencies that are supposed to be protecting people from unlawful evictions, but it's these very same people that are out carrying these evictions. So what this means is that people must report all these incidents of unlawfulness by the law enforcement agencies. So people were meant to report these things to SAPS at 0860 010 111. But unfortunately, it's these people that are enforcing these things. It's these people that are acting unlawfully. So what people can do during this process is that they must contact civil society organization and pro bono law centers to ask for assistance, for legal assistance when these unlawful actions are taken by the police.
Let's hand over to you, Thapelo.
Yes, Zach. I'm glad that you have mentioned that you used the word illegal, because remember, the Minister of Justice has suspended all evictions, regardless of whether they are legal or illegal. What is very concerning about these evictions is that not only they are contravening the lockdown rules, but they are also in contravention of Section 26 of the Constitution that says that you cannot evict anyone unless you have obtained a court order from a court of law. So it's very concerning that this is happening. What worries us and concerns us is that when people do not have homes, they will have to be rendered homeless. And you recall that the national government has called on municipalities to actually provide temporary shelter for those who are homeless in the cities. But at the same time, the very same municipalities are actually rendering people homeless. So you find we are asking ourselves, what is it that they are doing when, on one hand, providing temporary shelters for homeless people, but at the same time causing a problem that will cause people to be homeless at the same time? So what is happening with these evictions, we will see people being stranded and spreading the disease and the virus all over, and contracting the virus as well. Most vulnerable people, the women and children that have been, in Makaza and in Durban as well, that are left rendered homeless. That is a great concern for a country that cares about the rights of women and children.
So let's talk about this then. The regulations have made provision for those who are homeless or don't have adequate access to hygiene necessary to stave off the spread of COVID-19. But we are seeing authorities using the regulations as a way to get rid of informalities. The justification is that these are not homes and residents are not compliant with the regulations. Is this correct?
I think, Zach, we need to define what is a home. A home for me is a place where I live with my family, where I cook, where I sleep, where we have social contact with our families, regardless of the structure. So it is amazing that the government looks at the structures and think that these are structures and this is rubbish. Rather, these are our homes. It doesn't matter how they are built, with whatever they are built, whether they are built in planks or zincs. It is our homes. It's all we can afford. And then these people can afford. That's all they can afford. And then, which is why it puzzles me when the government says these are just structures and not homes of the people.
Over to you, Mr. Booi.
Thanks, Zacharia. This talks to the character and the attitude of the city of Cape Town and other municipalities towards poor and black people. This talks to the character that these municipalities and the government is anti-poor and anti-black people. So you can't say that people's homes are not homes by virtue of these homes being made by Zanks.
For everyone listening, what should they do when they are facing an illegal eviction or removal during the lockdown period? What should they do, and is there any legal resource available to them?
As we have mentioned earlier on the call, that the people can seek remedy or legal assistance from civil society organizations, or otherwise they can contact SAPS to stop these illegal evictions. But the solution that we're bringing now, because we see that SAPS is not providing any assistance for our people, but it is further repressing and distracting people's homes. So would urge people that they must contact civil society organization law centers.
Thapelo, do you have anything to add there?
If I may add, Zach, we are also calling on city officials in the city of Cape Town to not render poor people homeless.
We want to call on the presidency and the national command that it must take action against these city officials that are further contravening the rules that are put in place by the presidency and the ministers. Because it's unlawful what they are doing, the law must take its course against all the officials that are administering and presiding over these unlawful evictions. We saw the city of Cape Town responding to say that what people are doing here is land invasion, when all people are doing is that they're responding to the need of housing in Cape Town.
Well, listeners, there you have it. In terms of the directions from the Minister of Justice and Correctional Services following the COVID-19 regulations, the service and the execution of eviction is suspended for the duration of the lockdown. The same applies in the event that the lockdown period is extended. Any attempts to evict you during this lockdown period will be unlawful. Further, any attempt to evict you without making an application to the court for your eviction and obtaining a court order will be unlawful. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us on this panel discussion.
Thank you, Zach.
Thank you very much, Zach.
For beautiful listeners, thanks for joining. For more information about tenant rights, please visit www.evictions.org.za. That is www.evictions.org.za. Join us on the next episode.